Wilson Morales from Black Film TV. Hey, Adam, how's it going?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. So you've had the pleasure of working with Ridley Scott twice. So what was different this time around? Obviously, from your other project that you worked with him before.
Was different about it. I think I understood that we had more of a shorthand the second time in working with each other because we had this experience on Last Duel. So there was not that I didn't trust him before, but there was even more of a sense of, to decode a film sometimes is almost always to decode a director, to understand what is they're looking for, to kind of know where to push it sometimes and where uh, um, and when not to. And the second time, it was great to kind of observe his process more because I could take more information in that I couldn't the first time because there's a lot of different elements and dogs and horses and distance and COVID, and that was still playing here minus the dogs and horses but it felt really intimate, and it felt like more like we were conspiring to make a movie, which was really fun.
Mm-hmm. You're playing Maurizio. Obviously, there's stories about him. How do you want to embody his character outside from what the script is giving you? There's footage, there's videos, I guess, and so forth. What did you do best to play the role?
It's up to debate what I did best, but what opened my imagination was like an overall theme of playing someone who starts the movie almost the most wise about the pitfalls of power and luxury, and saying things like Gucci is like that cake, you just want a little bit and then you want the whole thing, and then winds up being seduced by the thing that he knows is bad for him, and isn't really fully realized until tragically the end, which is a little too late.
Mm-hmm. I kind of saw him in a way as a slow learner. Like he started to pick up things until he started developing on his own, to what led to him separating from Patrizia and so forth. Did you see him differently in terms of like how his mannerism was and, like what he had to pick up? At first, he was not wanting to be part of the family, but then he was, and then he wanted to get deep into it.
Well, I think that love kind of does do that to you. I think it kind of makes you throw caution to the wind sometimes and just want to please the other person. That person grew up in wealth and luxury. And I think because he met someone who wanted him at a point in his life that he had nothing is a very powerful memory. That he first comes to her, as a Gucci, and he kind of dismisses it because who he marries is really, he was very important to his father. I mean, his mother died when he was very young, and his father was a very controlling figure in his life, from what I understand. So it's a person who hasn't really made a lot of decisions for himself for years, and Patrizia kind of turns into this lover slash pseudo parent, and when he becomes takes control over the company, even then it's not because of something that he seeks, it's something that happens to him, and he can't quite claim the throne, but Patrizia does. And I don't think it's till later in the movie when he falls in love again does he start to realize who he is himself, and even more when he gets distance again. So it kind of comes full circle away from the Gucci family.
You're working opposite Lady Gaga. Obviously, you have to establish that chemistry so that we, the audience, can see that there is initial love there. How was it working with her and establishing that chemistry? It's just not all about let's get into our zones and let's say what's on lines. Did you guys, how was that process like?
Easy to have chemistry with someone who is as well prepared and as in command of what her body is doing, and on time and available. And I would say that with everybody in the cast, everyone was so well prepared, and it was like a mutual admiration society, as obnoxious as that probably sounds. But when you're doing scenes with Lady Gaga in particular, it's, you know, with a great actor who's there and has done the work, but is very willing to throw it all away in sacrifice of what other ideas come up in the moment. And Ridley runs his sets that promote spontaneity with multiple cameras and doing minimal takes. So everyone is always kind of at the front part of their feet while you're shooting. So in that sense, it was great.
Mhm. This movie's about fashion. How much of a fashion person are you? Are you all about name brands, or is it about like looking put together when you walk out the house?
I mean, clearly, I am about the highest sense of fashion. It's not something that I think about often. Clearly, I try to stay as have a costume that's neutral as possible, so I don't have to think about anything. My main thing is just putting on clothes that fit. I have like Sasquatch dimensions, so finding things that actually have like a right sleeve length, to me is a win. So that's as far as my fashion sense goes.
You know, you mentioned something earlier about shorthand and working with Ridley. You've had the pleasure of working with a couple of directors multiple times. So what goes into saying yes to the projects you take? You know, and obviously, you know, it's shorthand when you're working with somebody else again, as opposed to somebody new, you know? So what goes into like, oh, you know, when you're being thrown projects, whether it's TV, films, or whatever else? What
Well, for
makes you
me,
say yes?
yeah, director first. Director first is the thing that you could have a great script, but if there's not someone leading it who, you know, is great at their job, it doesn't really matter. It's a director's medium. So in my mind, you work with great directors. Of the people that I work with, I literally have a list in my head, you know, of people that I want to work with or I think are great, or people that I've worked with before that we just have not always the same process, but a good way of communicating with each other. Sometimes we complement each other. Or sometimes we work almost the exact same way, and nobody has a right answer. And I what's great about being an actor is being promiscuous with those kind of people. I just finished something with Noah Baumbach. This is the 5th time we've worked together, and even after 5 movies together, we're still meeting each other as different people, you know, because we've had all of these experiences after the last time we've worked. So, and it's the nature of the thing we're working on is different. So we're still discovering new ways of talking to each other. And then you work with Ridley, who I've worked with twice, and he's almost the opposite. It's not 1 camera, it's 6 or 4. It's not, you know, 20 takes, it's 3, you know, and I enjoy that challenge, you know. Those personalities and trying to be, because acting is inevitably a service industry. That's what it is. You're there to service the story and service the person that is leading it. So, you know, it's one of my favorite parts. That's to condense my answer. The first thing that goes on in my mind is if it's a great director, and then if the part fits me, if it, you know, if I can understand the script, do I have enough that I feel like I can contribute, and sometimes that hasn't always worked out. There's been great directors that I've loved to work with, but I just don't think I can do the part. Like I can't find my way in for some reason. And then obviously the cast is a big part of it. Who you're going to be spending, you know, your time with.
Adam, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Obviously, keep doing what you're doing. I'm here to support wherever you're at. Stay safe.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. You too.